Now, a new version of AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT means that there are several little enhancements that have taken place. These are small changes that will make existing tools better, even if it's just slightly, but you get enough of these things and altogether they're almost like one big giant feature all on their own. One nice thing is that you can now draw arcs in either direction by pressing the Control key to switch directions. Let me show you. Type in A for the arc command, pick my center point, pick my start point, and it will draw in this direction. As you can see that it's starting at my start point. That little bit that's in between my crosshair and that first point is not getting drawn. If that's the part that I want drawn, that short little empty speck there, I just press and hold the Control key, and now it swaps the directions. Let it go, and it goes the other way. So a lot of times you start your arc command from the center and from a start point, and you get it wrong. You get the direction wrong. It's frustrating. You have to stop and do it again. Well, this way you don't have to. You just press the Control key, and it lets you continue on. One of the other little things that have been added into AutoCAD 2014 is the ability to fillet a polyline. So if I start the polyline command, and I want to fillet these two ends closed. Before AutoCAD 2014 and AutoCAD LT 2014, I couldn't do that. It wouldn't fillet in and close in on itself. I could fillet one of these corners, no problem. But let's say I'm going to fillet and make a radius of 2. I can click here now, and I get my little preview. You can see I can now fillet a polyline on itself. It's the same thing now with a chamfer. The chamfer can do that as well. And that's a really great thing. Another thing that you can do is use the convert PSTL files. That's a long system variable and it's a command, but it lets users convert the current drawing to either a named or color dependent plot style. That's just a different way of managing your layers and line types and layer colors and line thicknesses when they print. If you're going to use a CTB file or an STB file, this is just something that will do that change for you on the fly. Another thing that you can do in AutoCAD 2014 is to have spaces in style names. You couldn't have that before. So if you go to your Annotate tab and you go to Dimension Styles, click here to open it up. Before, if we were going to make a new one, couldn't put spaces in it before, but now you can. It's not a huge thing, but it's one of those little tweaks that make the program just a little bit better. Now, the default behavior for inserting blocks with attributes is going to stay in the dialog box. The ATTDIA setting is set to 1. So just remember that if you're using attribute dialog boxes. What that means is that when you insert a block and it has attributes, and typically that'll be with like a title block, the window will open up when you insert it every time by default and allow you to insert that text. Now, of course, you can turn that off if you'd like. Another thing that's been changed is single line text. It's been changed to maintain the last justification setting until it's changed. So if I want to type in single line text, I'm going to justify it left. Put it in here, and we're going to type in text. Now, when I go to put this in, it kept the same justification that I had before. So if I try to do dtext again, and I go to justify, it's defaulting to left because that's what I used last time. And my height, and now my rotation, and I can just type in whatever I need. Usually when you're making text, you're doing it the same way over and over again until you need it to be different. So that's just a little time saver. Another nice little thing is the dim continue mode system variable. That means when you're dimensioning something and you want to continue that dimension. So let's say here I have a dimension and I'm going to click here. If I want to continue, I can come up here to my continue and it comes here by default and sets up my dimensions. But let's say I have a different style. I'm going to click the annotative one and I have a dimension here. I'm going to put in. Now, regardless of what's set as being current, say I'm having my standard style be current. Now, if I go to click continue, and if I want to select, press S, say I want to pick this dimension. Now, what's nice about it is that it will automatically adopt the dimension style that you're continuing, even though it's not the current. Now, another thing is the ribbon hatch tool. It will maintain the previously used method of selecting a hatch, like either picking an internal point or selecting objects. So whatever you did last, that's what it's going to do. So one last thing, in the command line, the undo option has been added to it. So if I start a command like line, and I perform one instance of it, and oh wait, I picked the wrong spot. Normally I would just cancel out and just start the command all over again. Pick my point. Nope, that's the wrong point again. I can come down here and click undo. It doesn't cancel out my command. I don't have to completely start over. I can click the first point and then the second point. Oops, that's the wrong second point. Well, I can just hit U for undo, or I can click down in here. Before I couldn't do that. So it makes it a little bit easier to undo some things. Those are a lot of the little things that have been put into this new version of AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT that make the experience a little bit better. These are very small things, but all of the small things together really add up. Autodesk has an app store. It's called Autodesk Exchange Apps. This isn't a new feature. It's been around for a couple of releases now, but AutoCAD 2014 does enhance how you can manage those apps. One of the nice things about the Autodesk Exchange Apps program is that when you log in with your Autodesk 360 account to the Autodesk Exchange App Store, you get those apps. So if you log in to Exchange, like I am now, and you go to another computer and log in, you still have access to the apps that you've purchased. So that's great. AutoCAD 2014 will give you several tools that are very valuable to help you manage your Autodesk Exchange apps. There are two different ribbon tabs that you will be able to use. One is the Featured Apps tab. Click it here. Click on the Connect to Exchange button right here. That will open up your default browser and take you right to the Autodesk Exchange apps, and it will take you to the AutoCAD store since it is in AutoCAD. Now, Autodesk does have stores for some of their other products, and you can surf to those just right here. So if you use something else besides AutoCAD, like Civil 3D or any of these other options here, Autodesk 3ds Max, for example, you can get to those stores just by clicking on the appropriate button. But these are all of the apps that are in this Exchange App Store. You have some featured apps right here, and some of the most downloaded. And these lists will vary from time to time, depending on what's being downloaded often and what Autodesk has chosen to feature. If we go back to AutoCAD, we can get to those featured apps right here. Not all of them are listed, as you just saw, but several of them will be. So check this from time to time because you might find something that could interest you, or that might be something that you could even use, like a dynamic block remover. That's something that might be helpful. If you like any of these apps, you can just click on one of them, and it will take you to the Autodesk Exchange App Store for that particular app. It will give you information about it and if you want to purchase it. Remember, once you purchase an app through your account, you'll need to sign in first, of course. And once you do, that app is yours, regardless of what machine you put it on. And that's a great feature to have. So you can see these featured apps here. You can connect to the Exchange store there as well. Now, any of the apps that you've installed onto your workstation, you can get to by clicking on the Plugins ribbon tab right here. And these are the apps that you have. Of course, this is the Exchange App Manager, which is really cool, and that comes default with this version of AutoCAD. It tells you what apps you've loaded, the company you got them from, when they were installed, their size, and if there is a status update. And if there is, you can just click on here and follow the on-screen instructions, and your app will automatically be updated. So getting to the App Store is much easier, and you have tools built in now that can help you manage those apps, and it simplifies things. AutoCAD 2014 offers improved access to online help, particularly when using proxy servers. This new tool is called Secure Load. AutoCAD now provides new controls to enhance software security, and it helps you to prevent loading and running of unauthorized or even potentially malicious AutoLisp or VBA applications. Type in Options on the command line, and you go to the Files tab, the first tab on the left. You go right here to your trusted locations, and if you expand it out, you can add your folder here. So anything that you add to this folder, AutoCAD will automatically trust and load. So if you have a library of Lisp routines or VBA script files or something like that that you want to use that are being downloaded, you want to put them in that folder, or you want to make sure that folder is added here. Now to add that, you just click here, so you'll get this little blue box, and click on the Browse button. And then browse to that folder, click OK, and it will be added. Now if you ever change your mind and want to remove it, select the folder here, and then click the Remove button, and that will take it out. You can also access these controls using the new Trusted Paths and Trusted Domains system variables. You can also allow executable files to be loaded from all search paths, or only from trusted locations specified on the Files tab. And you can choose to display a warning before loading executable files outside these trusted locations. That way, if you miss something and you know it's okay, you can still use that. These options are applied to the new Secure Load System variable. And you get to these controls by going to the System tab. And then you come down here to the bottom and it says Security, and it's the executable file settings. Click that, you have your options here. As it says here, that these settings restrict the locations from where executable files are loaded. It helps you protect yourself from malicious code in these types of files. So you can change your secure load settings here. You have three main options. This is to choose the method to auto-load executable files. So you can load them from all locations without any warning. That really means no security, and it will just work the way AutoCAD has always worked. Just tell it to load it. Or you can click here, which is the default setting, to load from the trusted locations and to display a warning for other locations, and that will happen from time to time. Or you can really lock it down here and say only load things from trusted locations, and that's fine. And you can also choose the automatic loading functionality here of the AutoCAD LSP file. Now that's something that's been built into AutoCAD for a very long time. You have this setting here, and this is just another place for it to be changed. Now the AutoCAD LSP file will load certain things for you automatically, and it always has done this. This just gives you a place to control when that file is going to load. Is it going to load at the start of every session, meaning right when you turn on AutoCAD and then no other time, or when you open up each drawing? That's up to you. But this is just another little tool that Autodesk has put into AutoCAD to help keep things more secure, especially now with our Exchange apps, which has been a secure place to work and to download files. And if you're looking for something, I suggest you look there because you know that it is going to be safe because Autodesk does approve all of these routines. This might be a tool that you want to consider using to help protect yourself. There are many tools to use in AutoCAD, but before we can use them, we must know where they are or how to get to them. At first, you will need to hunt around for the tools that you want to use. But in no time, you're going to learn where everything is. In fact, your muscles will remember exactly where they need to move the mouse to get to your commands. The main form of input in AutoCAD is the mouse. A typical mouse has 3 buttons, though many users will take advantage of something like a 5-button mouse or a trackball. It's up to you, but all you need is a standard 2-button mouse with a scroll wheel. The scroll wheel acts as the 3rd button. Each button has a specific function. Button number 1, which is the left click button, is your main form of input and selection. You click this button to select an object, like this circle, or this square, or these 2 lines. The right click button can be set to one of several different functions. Out of the box, a right click will bring up a shortcut window. This is very handy. Many users prefer, though, to have the right click function as the enter key. That's a big time saver, and this is my personal preference. I'll show you how to make this change. To customize the right-click functions of your mouse, you will need to open the Options window. To do this, open the Options window by moving the crosshairs to the Application menu. That's the big red A at the top left hand of the screen. Click it with the left click on your mouse. Now move your cursor down to the Options button. Select it by clicking, and this will open up your Options windows. There are many different tabs that are on here that get you to different types or different areas of settings. To customize the right-click function of your mouse, you want to go to the User Preferences tab. Just move your mouse over the tab and left-click. To customize the right-click action of your mouse, click here. These are your different options, but what you can do is set how it functions. Typically, you have about two choices. One will either make it open up a shortcut window, or it will press the Enter key. Right-clicking then will be like pressing the Enter key. You can also press the space bar in AutoCAD and while you're editing something or while you're in the middle of a command. The space bar and the Enter key act in the same way in AutoCAD, unless you're typing in text, of course. But you can make your mouse's right-click button act like the Enter key or spacebar key. What that does, it keeps your hand on the mouse so you can start a command and finish it without having to take the time to move your hand to the keyboard. That's why I prefer it, but it's up to you. To turn off the shortcut menu, just click here. This will repeat the last command that acts like the Enter key. This is when you're in the default mode. That means you don't have any objects selected, you're not in the middle of a command, it's just the regular functioning state of AutoCAD. Now, when you're in edit mode, that means you have something selected. That's when the right-click functionality can be altered here as well. One thing you're going to find out about AutoCAD is that there are a tremendous amount of ways to customize its functionality. Some people never change a thing. Some people only tweak it just a little bit, but other people go crazy and completely customize it so that many users can't even recognize it as AutoCAD. I don't recommend that. Somewhere in the middle I think is the best option, but it's up to you. Click here for an edit mode to repeat the last command. But this is one you may want to keep the shortcut menu on because while you're working with something, you might want that shortcut. And in command mode, this means when you've started a command. So you have three basic options of functionality. You have your default mode, you have your edit mode, which means when you have something selected, and you have your command mode. That's when you're starting something, like you're drawing a line and you're right in the middle of it. Now, one thing you can do to get the best of both worlds, and I really like doing this, is I click here and I turn on the time-sensitive right-click. This means that when I right-click, it acts like I'm pressing the Enter key. But if I right-click and hold for 250 milliseconds, and by the way, I've never timed this, so I don't know how accurate it really is. But if you right-click and hold, it will bring up the shortcut menu, and you still have your Enter key functionality. I really like doing this. This is how I typically work with my right-click customization on. This is a pretty important customization because working with the mouse is your main form of working with AutoCAD. This is how the majority of your input will be done. Find the setting that works best for you. This is the way I will have this on for the remainder of the video training here, but you can do it however you want. That's the beauty of AutoCAD. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again throughout this series, that you can customize AutoCAD however you want it to run. When finished, click Apply and Close, and then OK. So now when I right-click, it's going to act like the Enter key, which will repeat my last command. And my last command was to open up the Options window. But if I right-click and hold, my shortcut window comes up. This shortcut window is very useful, so don't turn it off completely. I really suggest you use the time-sensitive clicking. But this gives you access to your last command or your last few commands. So if I wanted to draw a line, I can. I click the button and I start drawing my lines. Very useful. As you see, moving the mouse moves your crosshairs in the drawing. You're not changing the drawing, you're just putting your pick box, which is that square right in the middle of the crosshairs, somewhere. And wherever that pick box is, that's what you're going to pick. As you hover over these objects, they become dashed or highlighted. That means AutoCAD is telling you, hey, when you click here, this is what you're going to select. To unselect something, press the Escape key. Now you also have your scroll wheel, which is right in the middle. If you roll it back and forth, that's zooming in and out. That doesn't change your drawing any. It just sort of changes your perspective. You get a little closer or a little farther away. There was a time in AutoCAD when you couldn't do this, and it made things very difficult. But here's another little trick that you can use with the scroll wheel. If you click and hold the scroll wheel, it operates as the pan command so that you can move around. So you can zoom in, pan across, zoom in some more, or zoom out. That's very handy. One other trick that you can use with your scroll wheel is to double click it. That does a zoom extents. We'll talk more about what zoom extents is and a lot of different ways and how you can use the zoom command in another section. But the zoom extents will zoom all the way out to display the extents of your drawing line work in your workspace area, which is very nice. That's a great way to navigate in your file or in your drawing very easily and very quickly. I can pan around, zoom in real tight to this corner. And now let's say I want to get out to the other corner really quickly of my drawing. Well, I can pan. Yeah, this is going nowhere fast. Or I can double click. It zooms all the way out. And now I can pan and zoom and get there very quickly. So you'll find yourself navigating through your file with your mouse very easily, especially with the scroll wheel. Zoom in and out, pan around, zoom extents. That's probably how you will do 95% of the navigation in your file. Now your crosshairs are another important tool. They are your target. Where your mouse goes, the crosshairs go. Where your crosshairs are is where your new lines, your text, your objects, anything you draw or create will be placed in your file. I prefer to have my crosshairs fill the screen. I do this so that I can use them as a guideline when I draw. To change this, but again, only if you want to, open up the Options window. You can right-click and hold if you change that setting, and go to Recent Input and go to the Options, or you can do it just like we showed earlier. Click on the Application menu and come down to Options. Now this time we want to go to the Display tab. It's up here towards the left. Now come over here to your crosshair size. This is a percentage. You can make it as small as 1% or as large as 100%. Click in this box and type in the number you want, or click and hold on this slider bar and move it back and forth. Either way. Again, in AutoCAD, you'll find that there are a lot of different ways to input information into your drawing. Now, this is a percentage of your screen. At 100%, the crosshairs will extend 100% across and up and down. At 50%, they'll only fill half the screen. When you have the size you want, just click OK. And then you'll see here my crosshairs fit the screen. I like this because I use it as a drawing aid. I can quickly see if something is collinear, if they're lined up correctly, or not. The pick box is still right where I need it to be. Again, this is user preference. A lot of people don't like it to be this big. A lot of people will have it around 50%. That's up to you. It's still pretty big. I can still use it as a guide, but it helps me to know a little bit better sometimes exactly where my pick box is at. Again, it's up to you. The crosshairs consist of three major items: your vertical line, your horizontal line, and the pick box. These three items are there for visual reference. The two lines are perfectly straight and they intersect at the middle of the pick box. This point of intersection is the point where you will select objects or insert new objects. We mentioned that earlier. When you move your crosshairs off of the drawing area, which is this big box right here, you're going to see something a little bit different. You're going to see an arrow. So when I move it to one of these selection options, to the command line or to my Windows toolbar, or anywhere in the ribbon, or the quick access toolbar, etc., it turns into a pointer. But on the main drawing area, this large black area again, you'll have them as crosshairs. This is where all of your objects go. There are two main spaces in which you will draw: model space and paper space. Model space is where your drawing objects go. Paper space is where your annotation and sheets objects go, like a title block or some text dimensions, your drawing border, etc. We'll cover these two spacers in good detail later on in another section. One other area that I want to mention before we go is the Info Center. That's right up here. This is where you can get a lot of different information. You can go there for help. You can go there to log on to Autodesk 360. You can search for different product updates and find a lot of information. We'll go into more detail about it later on. But every space on your screen has a reason, has a purpose, and is a useful tool that you want to make sure you look at. Getting to important program functions in AutoCAD is done through the application menu. It's also known as the big red A. That's up here in the top left corner. It's difficult to tell that it's even a button, but it is. The application menu is where you will go to open up files, to save files, print files, and to manage many of the settings within AutoCAD itself. So to use the application menu, just move your cursor up to the top left corner here into the big red A, and you'll see that little triangle. It points down. Now we'll see this over and over again in AutoCAD. A lot of these objects here in the ribbon have a little triangle. When you see that, that means you can click there and it will open up a menu. So if we click on the application menu, it brings this up. And you'll see a lot of different things here in this window. Here we have the new, open, save, and save as options. These are fairly self-explanatory. If you want to start a new file, you will click New. If you want to open an existing file, click Open. If you want to save your drawing, or if you want to save as, save it as a different name. Now there are many ways to use your drawing. One way is to print it out, which we'll cover extensively in a later chapter. But you might be surprised at how difficult it can actually be to print a drawing, and that's okay. That's where the publish and the print come into play. We'll talk about those later on in much greater detail so you'll understand. There is a difference between print and publish. However, it's just the way to get your electronic file into a different format. And it could be hard copy on paper, or it could be in some other electronic format for other people to look at and manipulate. The export command is meant to put your AutoCAD file into some sort of digital format. It kind of works similarly to the print and publish commands. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but this will export your AutoCAD file into a different file format, like a PDF file that you can email to a client or a vendor. So you'll just come here, export, and click PDF. And we have different formats. Some of them come from Autodesk themselves, like the DWF, DWFX, or 3D DWF. And these file types are very similar to a PDF, though they're more AutoCAD-like. So if you've used AutoCAD, you can use a DWF reviewer software program called Design Review. That's free. It comes from Autodesk. But there are other formats here as well, like DGN. That's a different CAD file type that is used by many different programs. FBX is another file type that you can make, and there are other formats. You can click here, and it will bring up some options for you to choose from. And you can see here, you can save your file however you want to save it or export it. Click down here in this bar, you'll see the little triangle. Again, that indicates that there's more choices. And these are the different file types you can save it as: a DGN file, DWG file, a DXX, EPS, even a bitmap file, IGS files, etc. Now the Drawing Utilities feature has many tools in it. And if we come back up here to the application menu, and we see here the Drawing Utilities. Now you notice on all of these options here, I can click on either one of these buttons, and this will start the new command, for example. And that will just bring up a list of template files that I can go from. But you'll also notice when I go up to the application menu and I can see this button here. When I hover over the new, it populates a list of new options. And same thing with open, it populates different open options. So I can open up some sample files online. I can open up a DGN file, a sheet set, or drawing from the cloud from our Autodesk 360 account, or just a regular AutoCAD drawing. Now this save doesn't have any options to it, but save as does, and we can save it as a lot of different file types. Here's the export button, which we already looked at. Publish and print, we're going to look at those later, but now drawing utilities. We have a lot of different options here. We can look at drawing properties. This will set and display different bits of information about our file. This is what you get. It's very similar to selecting the file in Windows Explorer. Now you can add all of this to it that you want. We go back to our drawing utilities. We see our list here is populated, and we have units. We can audit the file, which will help us look at the data that's in the file, and it will see if anything is corrupted or messed up. So a lot of times AutoCAD will crash on you. And when it does, it could mess up your file. So you'll want to run what's called an audit. AutoCAD will scan the file, say, hey, look, there are errors, and we're going to fix those for you. The status gives you the drawing status and modes, bits of information about your file that you might need to know. Purge will help clean it. The recover works similarly to an audit. Sometimes it just gets messed up, and so you can't open a file because it has been corrupted. That's rare, but it does happen. Then you want to run the recover option. And so you hit recover, and it will tell you to open up the file, and it will run an audit before it fully opens the drawing for you and fix errors. That comes in handy when you can't open the file because it has too many errors. Again, this is extremely rare, but if that is the case, then you may want to come here. So the recover and audit are similar, but you run the audit on a file you currently have open, and you run a recover on a file you can't open or don't have open. Here we have open the drawing recovery manager. And this is a manager where you can go and recover multiple files at one time instead of doing one at a time. And we have recover and recover with XREFs. When we reference a file to one of our other files, we'll talk about that part later on. It could have errors in it. Luckily, though, that rarely happens. There are two icons near the top of the application menu. These two icons will list either all of the drawings that you have currently opened, which is this one here on the right. And if I select it, you'll see I only have the one drawing open, drawing number 1. So this is nice because it will give you a list of everything you have. If we click here, this will give you a list of drawings that you've had opened recently. And if you hover over them, it will give you a preview. So you get an idea of what they look like. This here will open up options. Now we're going to go into options here and there through the different lessons. And if I tell you to open up options, that's one way to get to it. Remember, one thing you're going to find out about AutoCAD is there are a million different ways to do the exact same thing. The way I prefer to go to options, though, is to just type in OP for options and press enter. And that will bring you up to a lot of different settings here that you have to control the way AutoCAD runs, to control the way it looks, and control how you interact with it. We're only going to tweak it a little bit here and there. Now, AutoCAD can do a lot of search for you right within the command line. And we'll talk about the command line later on. If you like to use the ribbon and you want to use it more often because you're more comfortable that way and you can't find a command, just go up to the application menu, and in this top bar right here, that's a flashing cursor, and it's there by default when you start the application menu. Well, there you can do a search for commands. So let's look for, say, data extract. You see here when I start typing in the commands, it's searching for it and it finds it. There's extract data and there's data extraction. Well, you can see these three commands are really the exact same command. They're just found in different places. This one is found on the ribbon tab, insert. And then if you come down here, it says linking and extraction, extract data. This one is found on the annotate tab on the ribbon. And this is just the command. So that means you can enter the command on the command line, or you can go to either of these two ribbon tabs and find the command. Now, one thing that's really cool is that, okay, I found the command. I don't want to go looking for it now. I can just click and it starts the command. Now, next to the application menu is the QAT. That stands for the Quick Access Toolbar. That's this guy right here. This is a very handy toolbar and one that has a lot of commands in it. This toolbar is meant to hold commands that you need frequently. There are some default commands that you can turn on or off in it, and it's easily customized. So here we have the new command, and a lot of these commands are also found right here in the application menu. And you'll see it looks very similar, and the icons are even the same. This is the icon for new. This is the icon for open. It looks like a file folder that you're opening. The save command is to an old floppy disk, the save icon. Save as has a little pencil. This one is a printer, and so it prints. We have undo, and we have redo. And here we have our workspaces, and we'll talk about workspaces later on. If you want to add more commands to the QAT or the Quick Access Toolbar, you can click on the More Tools button. If you click right here, this little arrow, everything with a check by it is turned on. The ones that don't have checks on them mean they're not turned on, but they're available. I like to have the match properties turned on, so I'm going to click it and turn it on. And here it is right there. So you can see that you can customize the Quick Access Toolbar very easily. Now, if there are some commands in here that you want to use but aren't in here, you can go to More Commands, and this will bring up a small version of the custom user interface. To customize it, essentially, you can find any one you want. I'm going to click 3D Mirror just because it's here. I'm going to left click and hold, and then drag it up, put it where I want to in the Quick Access Toolbar, and then release. And it drops it right in there. Now I have very quick access to the 3D Mirror button. When you're finished, click OK, and now it's been saved. So if you accidentally put something on there you don't like, you can right-click on the Quick Access toolbar and say Remove from Quick Access Toolbar. It's that simple. And I can come here and say Remove. So that one goes away. Now if I right-click up here, I can add a separator to help you organize your commands. Once again, get to that customization, or I can show the Quick Access toolbar below the ribbon. So if I want it down here, that's fine. Because a lot of these tools you can use while you work inside AutoCAD, and that's okay. So you can put it down here if you'd like to. I prefer it up there. Just right-click on it again, and then select the Show Quick Access toolbar above the ribbon. So that's the Quick Access toolbar in the application menu. AutoCAD 2009 introduced the new interface system known as the ribbon. Since then, each release has made it even better. It moves from tab to tab much more quickly now than it did when it was first introduced. This is good. The ribbon is your main source of commands and drawing tools. It groups similar commands together. It also groups the commands by workflow, meaning that the commands in a tab or panel are often executed in a series. The ribbon, which is right here. By default, it is stationary at the top of your screen. It's made up of tabs. We have Home tab, Insert, Annotate, Layout, etc. The main tab is your Home tab. This tab has several different commands in it that are used regardless of your design industry or project. These commands are also amongst the most commonly used. In each tab has a panel. This is the Draw panel, Modify, Layers, Annotation, etc. The panels contain the commands and tools that you will use. Panels, like the tabs, are grouped by similar commands. For example, the Draw panel, here on the left, has the commands in it that you need to use to draw lines, polylines, circles of different types, arcs, etc. If you're creating new content or new line work, you're probably going to use one of the commands in the Draw panel. Similarly, the Annotation panel has text in it. You can draw multi-line text, single-line text, dimensions, leaders, etc. To switch between tabs, click the tab that you want to work in. Insert, Annotate. This brings up the different panels for that tab group. To start a command, you just go to the panel with the command on it that you want and click the command and start drawing. And there's a dimension. If you aren't sure which command icon is for which command, just hover over it. You see that? A tooltip balloon will come up and it will show you a bit of information about the command. First, it will tell you the name and a brief description. If you stay there and let it sit for a few more moments, even more information about that command will come up. These are default settings, so if someone else installed this for you, they may have turned that off. And you may find them annoying, and you may want to turn them off. That's up to you. I'll show you how to do that very quickly. Open up your Options windows. In previous sections, we went over to the Application menu, clicked on Options. You can do that all you want, or you can just type in OP on the command line and press Enter. This will also bring up the Options window. Now your tooltips and your rollover tooltips are display features. So you want to go to the Display tab in your Options, and it's in this Windows Elements section, and it's right here. You can show the tooltips and you can show the rollover tooltips. The rollover tooltips are the real quick ones. Those are the ones that come up nearly immediately and they tell you the name of the command with a very short brief description of what it does. Now the tooltips are the ones that pop up later and go into great depth, and then sometimes they'll even show a brief animation of how it works. You can delay that by a lot of different settings. You can show them, or you can tell it to wait 2 seconds or 10 seconds, etc. It's up to you. When you want it fast. You don't want to sit there for 10 seconds. So keeping it at about 2 or 3 is a good idea. And if you don't want them at all, just turn it off. When you're done, click OK. And if you've turned them off but find, hey, that might be useful, I want to try it out for a while, you can go back and turn it back on. Not a problem. Now some of the panels in the ribbon collapse, meaning that they shrink so as to give us more room on the screen. Like here in the Annotate tab, in the text panel, we see that it has an arrow, a down arrow right here. Same with these dimensions, but not with the leaders. This gives you more commands, more options. It does this to save space. As you can see here in the dimensions, there are a lot more commands that are available. And sometimes too, you'll see it in the commands themselves. That means there are options available to you. Click it, and a list will come down and show you. Now this is the case in a lot of different panels, like the Draw panel, or the Modify, or the Layers. The commands you're going to use in the Layers panel the most are shown up here. The ones you're going to want to use, but not all the time, will be down here. Same thing with Modify and with Draw. So if you see that arrow, click it. That means there's more options available. It just opens up a different flyout panel. And some of these commands, like the circle, have their own flyout. Just like the panels do, so do the commands. These are all circle commands, but they will draw the circle in many different ways. We'll talk about it in that section later. This will draw a circle from the center to the radius. This will draw a circle based on its center and diameter, based on 2 points, 3 points, 2 tangent points in a radius, or 3 tangent points. You'll find that this is true in a lot of different other commands. Some of these flyouts have different commands in them, like a fillet, chamfer, or a blend tool, or a trim or extend, etc. Some of them will populate it with a big long list, like in the layers here. So that's how you get to any of your commands in the ribbon. You find what you want, you click it directly, or maybe there's a flyout, and then you just click it, and you start your command. There's a circle that we just drew with 2 points. If you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, but you really know that the circle options should be around here, click an arrow. That will bring up more options that you can choose from. Same thing with the commands and with the panels. Now you can reposition your ribbon, or you can make some changes to the way it looks. You can do that up here. This is your minimize button. Right now you can minimize it to just the tabs. That saves a lot of space. Now all of your commands are still there. You just have to click the Home tab to see them. Then you have everything here. As you go about your business, it slowly disappears. Same thing with Annotate. And here they are. That saves you a lot of screen space. Now, if you know where your commands are, you're very comfortable with a ribbon, then this is a great way to go. But if you're not so sure where the commands are yet, you may want to keep it expanded out. You have a few more options. You can minimize just to the panel titles. So that, okay, here's Annotate. Oh yeah, text, dimensions, leaders, etc. I can get to those. That saves me some space, but it also lets me know what's in that ribbon tab. Or I can minimize it to the panel buttons themselves. So you get a visual display of the Draw panel with all of the commands here. It's up to you. I can click on this button here to cycle through everything. Or just to return it back to normal. It's up to you. I like working this way because it helps me to know where everything is, and I'm going to leave it on this setting for the remainder of this video. That way you can see where everything is. It's less confusing that way, and it's much more visual. But again, set AutoCAD to work the way you want to, and you can always put it back later. There are two main methods of interacting with AutoCAD, the mouse and the keyboard. Many users will use the mouse almost exclusively, using the keyboard only when it's unavoidable. However, the key to efficiency in AutoCAD is to take advantage of as many tools as you possibly can, and that includes the keyboard. If you look at the bottom middle of your screen, you will see a gray area, one line like this. And as you move the mouse over the top of it, move your crosshairs, it will highlight. This is the command line. Even if you don't use keyboard input, you are going to use the command line. AutoCAD will give you instructions on what to do next while using each of your commands, and those instructions will be brought to you by the command line. In the command line is where you type in your commands. In these videos, I will often say, type on the command line. When I say that, this is where you would type. Come down here, you can click in it, you'll see your cursor blinking, and you will type in a command. And as you saw, when I started typing, it popped up right by the cursor. That's called the dynamic input. As I move the cursor around here with my line command, it's asking me to specify the first point of my line. And it tells me that here on the command line. And here is also the icon for it. So as I pick my first point, now you can see down here in the bottom, it says specify next point or undo. You can enter in commands there. You can get information about your current commands, and you can access a lot of other things. So not only can you execute commands through the command line, but AutoCAD will give you feedback through it. So keep that in mind. Many commands have options to them. Those options will appear in the command line. So there, I just drew my first line. Now to exit out of a command, press the Enter key or the Escape key. So that's to help get it out of your way. Now you can do a lot of things to the command line. You can left click in these little boxes here or really anywhere, but clicking in different places does different things. If I click on these little bars here on the left, so I click and hold and I drag it, put it to where I want. Now you see these little arrows? As I move the cursor to the top or the bottom or even to the sides of the command line, it gives me these little arrows. When I move it to the corner, it's at a diagonal. Now I can stretch my command line, making it larger, more narrow, wider, however you want it to be displayed. I can click it and pop it back into place if I want. Now it used to be the command line was always 3 lines and you couldn't really change it, but you can set it however you'd like. By default or out of the box, it comes looking like this. So if we start something like the circle command, to start typing in the word circle, C-I-R-C-L-E, and you'll notice I typed it incorrectly. That's okay. The command line has an autocorrect feature, so it gives you some different ideas. So if I click on the circle command, I can start drawing a circle. And remember earlier I said that the command line will give you some instructions. Well, it tells you here to specify center point for circle, or I have these different options. And through these different options, I can draw a circle in a different way. Right now, by default, the circle command asks you for a center point for your circle. Just left click there and drag your mouse out somewhere else. And that is giving it a radius. Or do you want to give it a diameter? I can come down to the command line, click on the diameter option, and now I'm drawing a circle by diameter. So if I click again, there's my circle. So now you've drawn a line in a circle. So your command line gives you a lot of information and it's interactive. And if you type it in incorrectly, you have things like autocorrect. You also have other things like autocomplete. So if I start typing in C for circle, I get a list here of different options of commands that start with the letter C. I can scroll down right here and keep looking. I can even go to the command and on some of them get a little pop-up, get some information and say, oh, hey, what is that? I'm not sure. If I press F1, now I'm going to be taken to the help command, which will open up help on the circle command. So you can get to a lot of different things right from your command line. As I start typing it in even more, it autocorrects. It fills everything back in and it tells me what I want to do. Now the command line is very intelligent. It keeps track of the commands that you use. And so if you use certain commands more often, then it will start to automatically fill in those commands ahead of the ones you normally don't use. AutoCAD is smart enough to customize itself to fit to your needs and to the way you use the command line. So in the command line, some of its really cool features is the autocorrect, the autocomplete, and adaptive suggestions. Now, these are the ones that I was just talking about. These are the commands you typically use that start with the letter C, so it starts populating that list with those. The command line has a built-in synonym list. It will return to you a list that might be a synonym of the command. So, for example, if you enter in the word symbol and start typing it in, it says insert, meaning you want to insert a block or a symbol. So if you're not familiar with all of the exact terminology and jargon that AutoCAD uses, you might find this helpful. You'll know when it's a synonym when it's in parentheses. What you're typing in is on the left, and the actual command AutoCAD believes you're talking about will be in parentheses. Another thing you might want to do, let's say that you have two lines, and you want this corner here to be round. Okay, so let's type in the word round. Now, RO is rotate, and round is a synonym for fillet. So if I click fillet, and I give it a radius distance of, let's say, 1. And then I can click on my edges, and you can see it makes that little round corner. So that's a nice little thing that you're probably going to find very useful as you learn AutoCAD. Other things that you can do with the command line you will see here is by getting your command history. If you click on this arrow, or if you press the F2 key, that will pop up this list. And when the list is up here, you can select the different items that are in here. You right click and copy it out. So if you do some things in AutoCAD that provides you with a list of information here that you need for a report or for an email, you can do that. For example, if I use the list command to give me information on this line, and I press enter, that will pop up my command history here and give me information on this line. See, it tells me it's a line, what layer it's on, gives me length and angle information. So if I need that information about an object, I can come in here, select it, right click and hit copy. I can go and paste it somewhere to use later on. And that's really cool. Now you have other options here as well. If I click on this button, it brings up a list of the latest commands that I've used, and you can go back to it. And you can change some of your settings by clicking on this little wrench, and you have your input settings right here. And you can turn all this stuff off or on. You can even change the delay time for when things pop up or not. Now you can change the lines of prompt history. You can even input search options. So if I click here, I can say what I want to look for. So if I want to look for a hatch pattern, I can do that. If I want to look for a specific block inside my file, I can do that. And we'll talk later about what these things are, blocks and hatches, etc. But you can do a search of objects inside your drawing just by typing them in the command line. There's a second form of the command line, and I mentioned it earlier. It's called the dynamic input. This dynamic input is a visual aid that's intended to help the drafter's efficiency. It puts the command line at your crosshairs so that you don't have to keep moving your eyes from crosshair to the command line and back again. This way, it will help you to concentrate on what you're drawing. So if I'm drawing on this line, I want to keep my focus on this line. I don't want to have to divert my eyes down to the command line and back up again to know what's going on. So the dynamic input can help with that. So if you're a good typist, then you can type the word circle without looking at your keys or your fingers and just type it in and see that it's been typed in correctly on the command line. Press enter and draw a circle. You can turn the dynamic tools off and on by coming down to this little status bar. There are a lot of different things that you're going to see here that we're going to use. This is it right here, dynamic input. It's turned on right now, and I can tell because it's blue. See these boxes here, they're gray. Those features are turned off. But if I left click on it, it turns it off. So now when I type in the word line, this pops up here on the command line. And I get a lot of different things here. I get the different commands, and I can do searches for them. Here I can do a search in the help, so I can learn more about the dim linear command. Or I can do a search here on the internet for it. So you can get right to the internet search. If you're trying to figure out how to use something, you can get to it right here. It will open up your default browser and show you a different list of things that you can use. Now here at the bottom are some different settings. So if you have a linear brightness setting or a hatch pattern setting, you can get to those. And if you click on the plus signs, it will bring them up as well. Or click it again to bring it down and you can scroll. Now, a lot of users prefer this way. They don't like the dynamic input because they feel it gets in the way of the drawing. Another way to enter commands on the command line is through keyboard shortcuts. All commands can be executed by typing on the command line, but most commands have a keyboard shortcut. So for example, the circle command, you can type out the word circle, or you can just type in the letter C. That will also start the circle command. Press enter or right click and draw your circle. That saves you a lot of time. It also saves you from coming up to the ribbon, finding the circle command, clicking on it, and starting it. It's nice if I'm in, let's say, the Annotate tab, and I'm dimensioning my drawing. And I say, oh, wait a minute, I needed to draw a circle here. Well, I could stop what I'm doing, go back to the Home tab, go to the circle, and then go back to the Annotate tab, or I can just stay where I'm at, hit the letter C, press Enter, and draw my other circle. That can help you to work more efficiently. So you're using your mouse and you're using your keyboard. Now those little shortcuts there are called command aliases. It's just an alias that you can use for a command. Now last tip, if you press the up and down arrow keys, this will toggle you through commands that you've entered. The up command goes up the list, the down command goes down the list. So if you want to find very quickly a couple of commands or just go back from one of the last couple of commands you've done, you can do that very quickly and get to what you want. And again, if it's the wrong one, press the escape key and you're out of there. While the main form of interfacing with AutoCAD is through the ribbon and the command line, there are other methods of executing commands in AutoCAD. They are the menu bar and toolbars. Out of the box, these two forms of input are turned off now. Way back before AutoCAD 2009 came out, they were the main forms of interfacing with AutoCAD, but they were replaced by the ribbon. The ribbon keeps everything in one central place, where toolbars can be spread out all over your screen, with some of them on and some of them turned off. If you've used AutoCAD in the past, then you are very familiar with toolbars. They work just fine, and if you prefer to use them, then go ahead. There's no real right or wrong way to use AutoCAD. Use the way that you are familiar with and the way that works best for your working style. If you haven't ever used them before, then I suggest that you stay with the ribbon. But I wanted to point them out to you so that you would be aware of them in case you came across some user's interface that has been set to take advantage of them. The menu bar is very similar to the ribbon. Instead of tabs, there are menus like File, Draw, Modify, etc. All of your commands can be found in the appropriate menu, just like in the ribbon. If you are new to the ribbon but familiar with the menu bar, you can turn it on, and nobody will get too upset with you. But again, if you are brand new to AutoCAD, I say stay away from them and stick with the ribbon and the application menus instead. If you want to get to the toolbars in the menu bar, AutoCAD has a workspace called AutoCAD Classic. Turn it on by switching workspaces. Well, your workspace is your user interface screen in AutoCAD. It can be arranged in many different ways for any reason you want to. AutoCAD has 4 main workspaces right out of the box. You can change them up here in your quick access toolbar. Click on the arrow and select the one you want. For the majority of this training video, we will be using the drafting and annotation workspace. But there is also the 3D basics and the 3D modeling. The fourth kind is AutoCAD Classic. Now AutoCAD LT, if that's what you're working in right now, you'll notice you don't have the 3D modeling and basics workspaces. That's because AutoCAD LT does not have 3D functionality in it, so therefore you don't need those commands. But otherwise it works the same way. To turn on the Classic workspace, just click it. This will get rid of the ribbon, turn on many of your toolbars, some of your tool palettes, and the menu bar. It looks very different, doesn't it? Yes, it does. We'll talk about tool palettes later on. They're fantastic and are very useful and very easy to customize as well. I'll click here to close them. But as you can see, the menu bar resembles the ribbon. Well, since the menu bar was there first, I think it's more appropriate to say that the ribbon resembles the menu bar. But here's your file. Here you have a lot of the commands. It has icons in it, so it's a little visual, but it's mostly text-based. You have your recent files down here on the list of what you've been working on, your utilities, plotting, opening, saving, etc. If you want to edit, you click on the edits. If you want to draw, like in the draw panel, you come here and here are your commands: line, circle, arc, etc. Just click the command you want, and everything else functions the exact same way as before. There are also toolbars. These are your toolbars. You can click them, drag them, put them to wherever you want. You can close them by clicking on the X. If you right-click anywhere on the toolbars, you can get to different toolbar groups. These are all the toolbars that you can turn on. The ones with the check marks on them are the ones that are on right now. Just find the one you want and it will come on. Here it is. You can turn it off again. Now, if you've turned off a toolbar and you don't know which one it was you turned off, you'll just have to go back until you find one listed that's not on and turn it on. The toolbars will appear into the last place you had them. If we move it over here, but then turn it off and on again, this is where it will appear. Find the one that you turned off and turn it back on. Pretty simple. So as you can see, the toolbars are all over the screen. Here's the line command. I just pick it and go for it. Again, use what you want. The toolbars and the menu bar were the standard of drawing in AutoCAD for many years until the ribbon came by. Moving from this interface to the ribbon interface was difficult for many users. However, I have found that the ribbon is much more intuitive because it does not spread the commands throughout your screen. The ribbon keeps everything in a centralized place, keeps them in one place. I know where to go when I need the command. But you can work however you want. You can use the ribbon and turn on the toolbars all at the same time and just add them to it. That's up to you. If you don't like this, you can always go back to the drafting and annotation workspace. And there it is. Now you can turn the menu bar on without turning on any of the toolbars. Just type on the command line, menu bar, and press enter. It has two settings, 0 and 1. 0 is off, 1 is on. And now I have the menu bar. It's going to take up a little bit more screen, but it's here. Here are my options for the file, to draw, to dimension, etc. So if you're moving from the old style to the new style of interface for AutoCAD, and you're watching this video, you may want to turn on your menu bar and use it. I'm going to leave it turned off for the remainder of this training video because I think the ribbon is a better situation. However, what's right and what's wrong is relative again. So use the form of input and interface that suits your needs best. AutoCAD has several ways to open files and access them while you're working. In this section, we will look at file tabs. File tabs are found right here below the ribbon. We have the ribbon, and then we have our file tabs. There is a tab displayed for every file that you have opened. So I have 4 files open: construction lines, movie house, multi-lines, and polyline splines. Click the tab of the file you want to make current. That will activate that file. File tabs are a very nice visual display that give you quick access to your open files. So as I click on any of these tabs, I will get access instantly to that file. The tabs will be displayed in the order that you open the files. So I opened up construction lines first, then movie house, etc. But if you want them in a different order, that's fine. Just click, hold it, and then drag it. You can see it will get moved around. If you have a bazillion files open and there isn't enough room to display all the tabs, an overflow menu on the right side of the screen will pop up. You'll be able to access your files that way. So if a file is opened as a read-only file, a lock icon will appear. And I do have one of those opened. That is the polyline splines. As you can see, here on the left is a little lock. That means it's locked. So if I try to save this file, it won't let me because I've opened it read-only. Now, if you see a little asterisk, like in this construction lines drawing, it's kind of hard to see. It's real small, but it's there. You can see that it's not here on these other two. That means that I have edited the file, but I haven't saved any of my changes yet. That's a nice visual cue that I found very useful. It lets you know, hey, look, you need to save that file before you lose anything. So if I quick save, just by pressing Ctrl and S on the keyboard, you'll see that asterisk goes away. So when you pass the cursor over a file tab, you get a little preview of all of the model space and paper space tabs. So with this construction line one, though I have it open right now, you'll see here's the model space tab and 2 layout tabs. There's nothing in either of these. But if I go to the movie house one, I'm not clicking on it, I'm just hovering over it. You'll see I have something here in model space and in this paper space tab called dimension. So when you do pass over them, you'll get a little thumbnail preview. It will also give you a display in the drawing area when you hover over the preview of each tab. You also get a chance to publish or print that tab. So you don't have to necessarily activate the file to print it out. You can just come here, click plot, and it will go to plot that file. Now, if you right click on the file tab, I get the options to create a new file, to open an existing file, to save this file, to save as, to save all of the files, or to close this file, close all of them except this one I've clicked on. One of my 2 favorite options on here is to copy the full file path or to open the file location. Now what that means is if I copy the full file path by left clicking, that copies the pathway, the full pathway of this file. So I know exactly where it is to my Windows clipboard. So now I can paste that into an email or into a report, or I can even paste it as text right here into my AutoCAD file. Now you can see where it is. And that's just text. Now the open file location will open Windows Explorer into the exact folder on my computer of where the file is. So you'll be able to get right to it. Here's the CAD file. I can do whatever I want to with it. Now that's really handy. Believe me, working with AutoCAD all day, every day, I find that I need to do these 2 things often. So these 2 tools alone are very useful. If you look and see the little plus icon here at the end of all the file tabs, if you left click on it, that is starting the new command. It will open your folder where all of your templates are. Just go to any of these template files is fine, click open, opens it up, and I have a new file. And since it's the latest one that I've opened, it puts it up here on the right side, and I get my previews. Now, if you see the little X, that will close the file. In the ribbon, we're here on the Home tab, we get most of our commands, but if you go to the View tab on the ribbon, and you come to the User Interface panel, there's a button here called File Tabs. If I click this, it will toggle the File Tabs off. So I'm going to turn that off to help save us some screen real estate. But you can always turn it back on just by coming to the View tab on the ribbon, the User Interface panel, and File Tabs. Click it, it will bring them all back. You can leave that on or off. In an earlier section, I showed you how to customize your mouse right-click to open a shortcut menu. I like to have these turned on because they can give you quick access to often used commands or tools right where you're working. You won't have to hunt for them or type on the command line to get them. There are several different shortcut menus that you can use. Each one depends on your current activity or situation. If you don't have anything going on, meaning you haven't selected an object, nor have you started a command, then a right-click will get you the default shortcut menu. I'll show you. I have some basic shapes here: rectangle, circle, triangle, and then a line. I have no command started and nothing selected. Right-click and a hold because that's the way I have my settings set up. If I did just a right-click, it repeats my last command. So right-click, hold, and I have my default shortcut menu. With it, you can cut, copy, paste, pan, zoom, move, and more. You have a lot of different clipboard functionalities. You can isolate objects, undo, move, etc. Very useful, very common operating tools that you have available to you right there, right by your mouse. So you don't have to hunt for them. You don't have to type them on the command line. You can get to them very quickly and very easily. It's a big time saver. Now, if you have an object that's selected and you want to get to the edit mode shortcut menu, again, just right click. Now, depending on your functionality, it's going to depend on what you're going to be able to do. So how you want it to behave, if it's not behaving the way I'm showing you, you may want to take a look at it. Go to your user preferences, right-click customizations, and turn your shortcut menus on. hit apply and close, and OK. Now, what you want to do in the edit mode is not hold. As I was showing you there, I was having trouble with it. When you select something and right-click and hold, it executes a special option that allows you to move, copy, or paste your object, or just cancel. That's a edit mode right-click menu option. Now, the way I have everything set at the moment, I can select it and then right-click. Not a right-click and hold, but a right-click. And now I get my editing shortcut menu. I can repeat my command, recent input, clipboard again, isolate, or I can erase, move, copy, scale, rotate, drawing order, etc. As you can see, most of these commands are self-explanatory. It's the command itself. I can't really rotate a circle, but I can scale it, or I can copy it. Let's try that one. Now I just tell AutoCAD where I want to put my circles. When I'm finished with the command, I press enter, or right-click, or escape. Now I can rotate this triangle by selecting it, then right-click, and pick the rotate option. Pick my base point of rotation, and now my angle of rotation. I don't have to hunt for a command. I don't have to type in anything. I can just work. That's where right-click shortcuts come in handy. Now, when a command has been started and you right-click, you'll get the command mode options. For example, L for line. We'll start something, and then we'll right-click. That works as an enter command, the way my settings are. So I'll start my line command again, and hold. Right-click and hold. Now I can go to enter. I can cancel the command. Recent input. These are different coordinates on which I've created lines, or the points to the lines. I can use my snap overrides. We'll talk about snap overrides in another section, but the snap overrides will snap you right into place. They will make sure that you are drawing accurately. They will take you to an endpoint of an object, like the vertex or vertice of one of these rectangular or square-like corners that will take you to the endpoint of a line, etc. You can go right to the center of a circle, to the quadrant, a tangent point, to a perpendicular aspect of an object, parallel, etc. They get you right to the point. They are called snaps. Or I can pan, zoom, get my steering wheel or the quick calculator up. Now, the command line shortcut menu will be different all the time, meaning for different commands it will look different. That was the line command. Let's start the move command. Pick my point and right-click and hold. Some of the basics are there, like the panning and zooming, etc. Entering, canceling, recent input, because I'm going from coordinate to coordinate, that's similar, but I have different dynamic input. I can turn on absolute coordinates or go to a WCS coordinate. Absolute coordinate means the exact value. I'm going 5 units away from my current point, or the WCS, which is the World Coordinate Systems, meaning I'm going to an exact coordinate, regardless of how far away it is. And again, I get my snap overrides. So you can see the right-click command shortcut menu will vary for different commands because different commands and tools have different needs and functions. So that will vary slightly. Typically, right-clicking will give you an appropriate shortcut menu for what you're currently doing. So as you work with AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT, and you need to do something with your command or an object, or you're in some situation and you're not sure what to do, right-click. It could be a real time saver. Also, it will help you to learn the abilities of the commands that you're using. So I have a saying, when in doubt, right-click. Everything in AutoCAD can be customized, even the right-click function. It used to be that the right-click was nothing more than an enter command. Well, you still have that option, and it's a great time-saving option. But you can use either the enter or the shortcut version of the right-click. There's even a hybrid version, which we went over earlier in another section, but we'll quickly review it again. To set this, open the Options menu by right-clicking with nothing selected and with no command started. You can right-click or right-click and hold depending on how your settings are. And go to the Options. Go to the User Preferences tab and to the right-click Customization. This is how I typically work. The default setting is with this turned off and the shortcut menus all turned on. And as you can see, we have the default mode, the edit mode, and the command mode. Each one basically repeats the last command, which is the enter key, or a shortcut menu. Now the command mode is slightly different. It's enter, shortcut menu, which is always enabled, or a shortcut menu enabled when a command option is present. So in other words, it will give you the shortcut menu only when there are options. Essentially, it's going to be all the time. There are very few cases where you won't be able to have this criteria. But what I prefer to do is to use the time-sensitive right-click or the hybrid version so that you get the enter key and the shortcut menu functionality in your right-clicking. You don't get that option in edit mode, so I typically keep it as a shortcut menu. When I use the shortcut menu in edit mode, I can still have an option for the enter button if that's what I want to do. Find the settings that work best for you. This is my recommendation. Do what works best for you. Apply and close and OK.